Yeah, so now religious liberty.
So, yeah, religious liberty, therefore, is the freedom. Sorry, I think freedom is just a synonym for the word liberty. Yeah? Religious liberty can basically be defined as man being exempt from restraining circumstances by other men in the discharge of his duty to his creator.
Yeah.
So it entails your definition of God. No other man should have authority over how you choose, who you choose to worship, and how you choose to worship whoever you choose to worship. So Daniel is thrown into the lion's den. But what happens? The next morning comes, and guess what? Daniel is still alive. Who protected Daniel from the lions? It was his God. What does it say? That in as much as God gave civil power to the Medes and the Persians, that power was limited.
Yeah.
It was never meant to interfere with the religious obligations of not only Daniel but everyone else, as far as that jurisdiction was concerned. And basically that's the principle. And anyone who is a Christian should appreciate that fact, that there is the role of the government in civil matters, but in matters religion, the government has no say. Religion, the duty we owe to our creator and the manner of discharging it, the government has no business in that. And anything that the government does that affects religion, that's
I could say overstepping.
it's actually overstepping. It's usurpation.
Yeah.
They're overstepping the boundaries which God has set as a limit for them. Yeah. Is it constitutional? Why are we teaching?
That was the same actually discussion I was actually coming to, because now then, is it okay now to teach religion to young children, or is it now, should it be the exclusive duty of a parent, who is the parent of the child, to introduce them to religion?
You see, religion, I believe your question was in the context of the government. Is it okay for the government to teach religious education?
And then if so, or if yes, or if we should, if they should disband it, then should we just leave it to a parent to do their part?
Okay, let's look at it from this perspective. You are a taxpayer. I am a taxpayer. He is a taxpayer. The social contract we got into that made the government required that we cede some of our rights so that we enjoy a greater benefit. So as he mentioned, we now don't need to carry guns, but we can have an institution called the police who will carry guns on our behalf and ensure that all of us are secure. So look at it from that perspective. So we've all paid taxes. You are a Muslim. I am a Hindu. He is a Christian. Which religion do you think will agree should be taught in those schools? And even, I think that's a bit extreme. You are a Catholic. I am a Lutheran. He's an Anglican, or he's a Seventh-day Adventist. Which denomination of Christianity is now supposed to become orthodox? And you know, when something is made orthodox, the others automatically become unorthodox. They become heretical. So who in his right mind can get into such a social contract? In my opinion, it doesn't make sense to teach religion, to have government agencies teach religion. Religion can never be sustained using taxpayers' money. But I acknowledge that private entities can do that. So churches can open schools. Parents can teach. You can have non-governmental organizations doing that. But strictly speaking, from the side of the government, it does not make sense at all. What happens to our atheists brothers? They are our brothers, isn't it? They are our relatives. What happens to them? You want their money to support something they do not subscribe to. It honestly doesn't make sense from a social perspective. Maybe my brother can expound legally if it does make sense, but I don't think so.
There will actually be no, any legal expansion has also to be based on a principle. So I think you have exposed it well.
And maybe now, we'll now talk about how courts have been able to enforce these religious liberties, because I remember there was a time when atheists wanted a registration, and also when the LGBTI
Yes.
moved to court to be registered, and they were barred,
Yeah.
and they are still not registered. Maybe I think because we are saying, oh, Kenya is a Christian country, but we are still the highest in corruption. So I wonder which Christianity we are practicing. Yeah, but maybe now you could expound on now what the courts have been able to do.
Let me start by talking about courts in Kenya.
Yeah, courts in Kenya specifically.
If you have seen the way we've started our discussion about how religious liberty is looked at, immediately you see a problem. Because it is not viewed as a derogable right, non-derogable right.
Yeah,
From the outside, it's a tolerable right.
yeah, which
Yeah.
means at some point the state
Yes.
can wake up one day and say, okay,
Yes.
now we want to limit this freedom.
Yeah, because of, they will give
Yeah,
a bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
Well, you can claim on Article 32 and whatever, but you and I both know, it's very difficult to challenge, not very difficult, you can never challenge the constitution in any court. So, right from the onset, if a right is non-derogable and it has not been indicated it's otherwise, that's the end of the story, literally speaking. One case which I thought was addressed the issue particularly well was Mohammed Fugisha case, the hijab, famously known as the hijab case, where the discussion on Article 27 and 32 was bordering on discrimination. That more specifically about indirect discrimination, that a law could be neutral, but when applied to a particular group, it brings about discrimination that we are not seeing. Yeah? Because these girls held a particular belief that they're supposed to wear a hijab.
Yes? In a high school.
Yes. Yeah. The rules of the school have been put as such. The Methodist school, remember from the Basic Education Act, the school that sponsors also sponsors the religion of the institution. So what I saw the courts doing was to say that you may not see it as direct discrimination, but it becomes indirect because when a neutral law is applied to a peculiar group, and this peculiar group holding a belief that they're supposed to wear this particular, and now maintaining it under Article 32, the freedom of belief and conscience, which they hold genuinely. When that neutral law is applied, then in comparison to the majority of the group, then they are discriminated against. I think that case really brought it out well, and also according to the doctrine of accommodation. You see, we don't all have to fight all the time. Negotiation. Yeah? We can enter into an agreement if he feels that his views will be limited, say his rights, religious liberty will be limited. There can always be a discussion, because what is at the heart of it, we don't want the mean score to go down. Now, if the mean score does not go down, or if uniformity does not go down, say by negotiation, we'll do this, wear the same color, but you see, now that has to be left to members to judge themselves, but the principle is up. Yeah, and cases have gone all the way to the Supreme Court, where but on the not to limit freedom, because I remember the Supreme Court case was talking about, you see, when a court has already made its decision, you don't now go again and direct, please report back to me after 60 days on what you have done and done. When a court is done, it's done. It becomes functus officio. Yeah? Maybe if we jump borders, you asked on the issue of LGBTIQ.
Yeah, and then now even as you're jumping borders, I would like you to speak now about, in the international realm, now about religious liberty.
Yeah. One country that we run a religious liberty organization in Mwero, so we monitor some of those indications. One country that has a very rich literature in, say, jurisprudence on religious liberty is obviously the United States. From the Senator Blair bill, You see, they had to amend their own constitution and say, no religious test shall be required to get to any office.
Wow.
They had the Johnson Amendment, which was obviously at the behest of Donald Trump, was done away with, which prevented politicians from using the faith-based organizations. So we are seeing a particular trend towards a merger of state and religion, because like I said, any unholy alliance between the government and religious person automatically resorts to persecution. And persecution, I don't mean it that you go and burn at the stake tomorrow, yeah, or immediately after, yeah. Because of the nature of that right, the person who designed that right is, if you interfere with it, I no longer enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think I can even bring the discussion back home.
Yeah.
Still the same context. I'm not changing the context.
Yeah.
Our constitution, you can give us the article if you don't mind. There's a part it talks about national symbols.
Oh, yeah,
And it talks about Mashuja Day, this day. There is no religious holiday recognized there. Friday is not recognized. We know it belongs to the Muslims. Saturday for the Jews and SDAs. Sunday for the other Christians, Catholics, and the other. None of it is recognized. But when you go to article, is it 260, where they're being defined, you see that Sundays are being exempted.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What was the rationale for such a decision? It gives an impression.
It is given as a national holiday.
Yes. For who?
Yeah.
For who? Surely the Muslim will go about his business, isn't it?
Yes.
The SDA will go about his business. The atheist will go about his business. Why is it a national holiday when in reality it applies to just a segment of the population? So these are some of the things that, even as you look at how this law has been interpreted by our courts, we also need to look at the Constitution. As my brother said, you cannot challenge the Constitution. So it simply means that should the government insist that everyone must, the way people have it in Rwanda, they have a national day for cleaning. And almost always it falls on Saturday. I think it always falls on Saturday. For cleaning, yes. You sweep around your city and everything. So that happens in Rwanda. So what happens to the people who do not subscribe, who subscribe to a Saturday keeping religion? What happens to such people? Does the government directive for people to clean the environment trump your right to worship? And so for me, first of all, the biggest thing we need to evaluate is, first of all, our Constitution. Is it really perfectly capturing the privileges? And when I say privileges, I mean God-given privileges that people have been given as far as worship is concerned. And once that is done, then we go to the interpretation of that law, because I believe constitutionally it is the courts which interpret the law, isn't it? With the Supreme Court sitting at the highest point, isn't it? So for me, those are some of the red flags which I think should be considered. And I hope some of your audiences are lawmakers. Those are things they should consider.
We actually propose, if they amended the Constitution, it should be included as a non-derogable right.
Yes. And the Sunday should be expunged from that, because it's religious. It's not like Mashuja Day. We know this is what happened in our history as a country, but there's really no value in having it as a public holiday.
I totally concur, because as you've been saying, you can't challenge the constitutionality of the Constitution itself.
True.
So of course we have to look into that. And even as we are almost winding up our discussion now, I told you could mention now about the International Bill of Rights, which is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Does it provide for religious liberties? And now as you're doing the comparative discussions, especially in Africa, I've realized in Africa we are sort of religious. I don't know. What could be your comments on that?
For our borders, of course, the United Nations has, and I will leave the link for your viewers to see it later. They are provided for at the international level. And even at the African Union level,
Yeah,
it is
the
recognized.
African Charter on People's and
Yes.
Human Rights. Yeah.
But let me give a specific example that you had asked me before. I think we forgot to mention about the LGBTIQ. You see, there had been a context of why they are not recognized, and they went to court, and rightfully so, because they want freedom of association and expressing themselves. You know, the controversy was also addressed in the United States in terms of the Master's Cake City Shop, and we'll leave it for your viewers to see the reasoning of the judges. The principle is always the same. If you start from the principle, you will never err. What you do in your thoughts, secrets, intentions of your heart, no government can come in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And I think that should even.
Yes.
I was almost saying Ugandans should understand this. They are famous for jailing their
Yes.
LGBTIQ.
Yes. What you do in your, you could be a married man all your life. But if you love another man or a woman loves another woman, we will never know.
Sure.
Okay? So there are things, as much as we want to legislate, we are simply trying to enforce morality.
Exactly. We
Yeah?
need to legislate on morality, which is like
And
totally
that,
possible.
and the state, remember what we said, the state has not been given the office of the Holy Spirit, because that is what God uses to enforce morality.
Yeah.
Okay? So, that's as far as I can say about that. But like I said, we'll leave it for your members to see those key distinctions that we have highlighted, because we are seeing, there is a trend. I mean, of course, the government will be concerned if young people are drinking from Friday to Monday. There would be a concern. Or there will be a concern if children are being truant over and over again, or certain trends are not being respected.
Yeah.
But we must be careful that there are things which there is no legislation on earth which can cure or even find a possible solution. That solution can only be found in reason and conviction. The same way when we have a disagreement, you persuade, not a disagreement, if you go to court and present your case, you persuade the judge and you reason with him until he's convicted that I agree with counsel, say for the applicant or the respondent or the plaintiff or the defendant, that I agree also based on my findings that what you addressed me on is true to this particular context. But like I said, the challenge has been, even the world over, none, we are not able to see any country that is distinguishing the two. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Actually, when America started, the distinction was, I think, the clearest we've ever had.
Yeah.
Now, as time goes by, for some reason, it gets blurred. And, as Jared mentioned, man always seeks to dominate another man. And that's the biggest problem that I believe the law should address. Because the law can never change, no law can change the nature of another person. So if you are a thief, you are a thief. The law will not change you. The purpose of the law is to restrain you. It's more of a cage to restrain that evil tendency in you so that it's not manifested. If you walk in Nairobi, people lust over things. They see a good car, they want it. They see a good watch, they want it. Given an opportunity, they may want to take it. You saw what happened with the George Floyd demonstrations. Almost immediately afterwards, there was looting. Are you telling me these people were looting because George Floyd was killed? Why were they not looting food?
Yeah.
Why was it sneakers, gadgets, electronic gadgets?
Yeah.
The shops were targeted. Not every shop was being looted. Why? Because already in the people, there was already that desire to get something which was, not reachable to them. So the demonstrations just gave them an opportunity to manifest whatever was inside them. So what the law should do is that it should not give you an opportunity to manifest your crookedness in the society. Because sometimes when such crookedness is manifested, someone dies. that person can never have another opportunity to come back to life. And as far as I see, that's what the law should be restraining. Not the thoughts, but the actions. So at the moment we have curfews. Why? They are trying to restrain something, isn't it? Not necessarily the thoughts.
Yeah, not the thoughts, of course,
Yeah.
it's the actions. Yeah, wow. Wow, thank you, gentlemen. I have enjoyed this discussion, and maybe now you could give your parting shots, on issues to do with religious liberty. What are your final thoughts?
Religion is very emotive. It is very emotive. That notwithstanding, everyone retains their rights to dictate who they worship and how they worship. Whoever we worship and the liturgy is not under the jurisdiction of man or the institutions of men. I think, considering that this discussion is made in the context of our laws, it will be very important for our laws to appreciate that. The issues like the one that I mentioned concerning the recognition of Sunday, it has no historical value to our contract as a nation. It has no historical value at all. And to the best of my knowledge, Sunday as a day only makes sense to the Christians. Saturday as a day only makes sense to the Sabbath-keeping Christians and the Jews. Friday as a day makes sense to the Muslims and other religions which observe that day. So personally, the thing that I'd love the most to see is to have a perfectly neutral constitution which cannot be abused and bring about scenarios which were present during the medieval ages. For me, at that point, then when we get to that point, then our society would have reached, I dare say, the level which God wanted us to be initially, where no man's religion is being dominated by another man.
Yeah. And even now, Jared, as you give your final thoughts, maybe you could now comment on employers who enforce, or I could say, make it a necessity for people to work on specific days, which their worship days.
I think my friend I have a friend who's better at me at employment law. Perhaps he will address you on that. But as far as I'm concerned, the employment law also allows for days of rest within the week, specifically 2 days, I think. But employers know that they should not do that. Let me talk like a layman for a minute. Employers know that they should not do that. Yeah? Because you are limiting someone's rights. And you know our Bill of Rights, the courts are supposed to expound them anytime they look at them. They are supposed to expound them, and for the highest possible enjoyment that you can get those rights. So my approach has always been, one, if not really to negotiate with an employer, but as an individual, make your stand known from the onset. He gave a very good example of Hebrew boys during Nebuchadnezzar days. They respected Nebuchadnezzar on all matters of government. But when it came to their association between them and God, they said there is no interference here. And when they were tested and tried, it was seen to be so.
Yeah, for sure.
And if I would encourage, if you have been put in a position where you had to lose work because of your faith, I mean, that is a remedy we can take to the court and address you on. But that should not happen with our current constitutional dispensation. Yeah, and there is a lot of case law on that. Yes.
So now your thoughts, your own
Yeah,
final
my final thoughts. Well, when we came, there's something I came across which mirrored my thoughts, that the spirit of the people may alter, will alter. Leaders will become corrupt, and the people will become careless. That if we do not break the shackles that hold us now, while our leaders are honest and our people are alert, those shackles will remain heavier and heavier and heavier. There is an opportunity right now to address this issue in the context of amending the Constitution. Because should it come that there will be a controversy, those will be the same issues that we'll be raising, and not just for a particular sect, for the atheists, for the Mohammedans, for the Buddhists, for the Indians, for anyone. Even if you worship a rock or a tree, the same arguments will remain. But with the current loopholes that we have, it will be very difficult in a moment of crisis. So while the shackles are lighter, we have an opportunity to unshackle them. Before the wheel alters completely, that we now declare that we are a Christian nation. That will be the end of our opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've loved all your parting shots. And I'm sure they will stir up some discussions,
Yes.
even some internal, I could say, reflections.
Yes.
from people. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for sparing your time, and it was lovely.
Pleasure as well. Thank you for having me.